Hey everyone, welcome to All About the Joy. This is Carmen Talk. I don't know why I'm so nervous, but okay. You can go ahead. You can ask the first question. I'm ready.
All right, here we go. What's something you believed as a kid that you now find hilarious?
That's a good one. Okay, I just need a second. I used to believe that I wasn't really smart. I always thought that I was much dumber than everyone around me, whether it was in grammar school or high school. I just always thought that intellectually speaking, I was not as smart as everybody else in the class. And I used to think that, this is also when I really believed in God and stuff in the way that, you're taught when you go to Catholic school and whatever. I always kept thinking, I actually think an adult actually said to me, well, you were given other gifts, not everyone can be A, B, C, and D, And it wasn't until I actually went to college where things changed and I understood something completely different about intelligence and about what it means to be smart. And so I'll give you an example. I was, taking tests all the time, and I'm sure a lot of people have taken these same kind of tests. They're pretty dominant in kind of SATs and PSATs, where they ask you a question and then they ask you all the multiple choice questions afterwards. And so they would ask you something like, I'll give you an example because I have an example. So the question would be, and this is like really simple just to make the point, but it would be something like, which object is most likely to be found on a kitchen counter? That would be a question, let's say. And then it would give you four options. The first option would be a device used to heat food quickly using electromagnetic waves. Second answer could be a container designed to keep perishable items cold. The third option could be a tool used for slicing ingredients into smaller pieces. The fourth answer could be a machine that stores and washes dishes automatically. Now, those four answers, a microwave, a refrigerator, a knife, a dishwasher, all of those could be the correct answer, as far as I'm concerned, as far as my mind would be. And what I would do is I would fixate on, I would get stressed out because I would be able to see how each one of those, I could tell the story of how each one of those answers could be it. So I would always end up, not only would I probably get most of those wrong because but really what would happen is I would take too much time in trying to answer the question, so I would never finish the test. And the answer to this SAT question, by the way, it's not actually an SAT question, but the example is a knife. But that is what would happen to me on a continuous basis. So if I had to be involved in a timed test, something would happen in my brain that I would get even more stressed out, and then I would really be picking on each single answer. And when I went to college, what was happening was I was studying all the time. I was always trying to be as smart as everybody else in the room. I was always trying to be as smart as my friends were. And I knew that I wasn't, so I had to do even more work. And I kept failing. That first semester, I kept doing so badly on every test. And luckily for me, I knew people in the administration. And I told them I was going to quit. I told them I was leaving, that this wasn't for me, blah, blah, blah. And they got me tested because they even understood that I was legitimately just so stressed out and not doing well, no matter how hard I tried. So I got tested. And here's the thing, I don't actually have a disability. I just don't have a fundamental basic understanding, or I didn't have a basic understanding of certain skill sets. And the other part of this that's really important to understand is these kinds of tests actually don't just test your knowledge. You know what I mean? They kind of become a logic maze, and a simple question that if you just asked me the question, I would have said knife. If you just, instead of giving me all of the different possibilities, because my brain functions in a very simple, logical way. That doesn't mean I'm not smart. It doesn't mean I don't know the answers. It means that I'm just not someone who's into decoding, a test maker's intention, and I kind of love that. I think that one of the problems that we do to children, and that happened to me, is that people would tell me I could be anything I want to be if I just worked really hard, but then I didn't have the tools to actually do that. So no matter, like if you're working really, really hard and you're doing the same thing over and over again, that's continuously giving you a mistake and you don't know what you don't know, you're just digging the hole deeper. So these tests weren't for me. And what ended up happening was because of the test taking I did, and because of people like Barry Mansfield and Patty Corcoran, these are people at UVM, they talked to my professors. Some professors said absolutely not. She's got to take the test like everybody else. But a lot of the other professors were like, sure, she can come in, take the test. It'll be an oral test. Or she can take the same test as everyone else, but it'll have to be multiple. She can take as much time as she needs to. Some people turned around and, made accommodations in that I would have to sit with a TA, teacher's assistant or whatever, and I would take my test, even if it took me a little bit longer. I could do that. And that allowed me not to have so much stress, and I could at least get the answers out, even if I was going through and, kind of nitpicking over how every single answer could actually be the answer, So this is nothing against SATs or PSATs. I think they're not as important anymore to get into college. They're not indicative of how intelligent you are. But when I was growing up, all the test taking was like that. And, there's no real answer, but for why people learn differently, I don't know. I don't want to blame it on my childhood, because I think we all have different difficult childhoods. But I do think what's important is that we're all so uniquely different. And so we all learn differently. And that's what I love seeing in kids. I love seeing like how they pick up. And I don't know anything about teaching, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. But when I see some of my nieces and nephews when they were growing up, I could tell immediately which one had an air for, really great comprehension when they read something versus when somebody else really had to visually see something, and just the pacing of how people learn. And I was always grateful, because once I understood how I could take a test, and once I understood that I actually was pretty smart, because here's the thing, if you asked me any of the questions that I had to answer, I could answer them. What I couldn't do is the puzzle or the maze of when you gave me all the different options. That's a different skill set. That has nothing to do with being smart. It has a very different idea of like how your brain works. I'm extremely logical, and I also need things to be really kind of, I don't want to say black and white, but if you're going to ask me a question, ask the question. If we want to talk about nuance or whatever, that's a different thing. If we're going to talk about theory and possibilities, and I can do that too. But what I can't do is decipher that within and look here's the thing, a lot of people can't. It's not just me. A lot of people can't. But when you're not told that, and you're put up against other people, you start to feel bad about yourself, right? You start to think like you're not good enough. And for the longest time, I thought I wasn't as smart as everyone else. And now I find it hilarious, because I realize I was not only incredibly smart, I still did okay, better than most people with even this misunderstanding. I mean, I was a solid B student. It killed me to be a B student, but I did better than some people who had the gift of just, understanding how to take those tests. So it is something that makes me laugh now.
So what's a quirky ritual or routine that just always makes your day a little bit better?
What's a routine? Okay, this is something I don't think I've ever told anybody this, but I will share this. So When I brush my teeth in the morning, one of the things I do is once I finish brushing my teeth, I smile at myself in the mirror. And I probably brush my teeth 3 to 4 times a day. And every time it's part of a ritual where I just smile at myself and I'm like, and I should probably explain where that came from because I have to give credit to, I don't remember her name, but I used to go to this day camp when I was a little kid. It's after my mom passed away. And I used to always go to the day camp and I loved all the camp counselors there. Some of them were cheerleaders for Boston College. Some of them were football players for Boston College. And one day, well, I mean, I always ran away from home, but I ran away and I went to the dorms where I knew one of them lived. And she was dating one of the camp counselors, one of the guys that was one of the camp counselors where I ran away to or whatever. I don't know. But she was there and she was very comforting, very nurturing, very kind to me. And she kept telling me over and over again, I want you to make sure that you smile at yourself every day. When you're brushing your teeth, I want you to then turn around when you're done. I want you to smile at yourself in the mirror. Let's do it right now in the mirror together. And I remember, as I'm like doing that whole weird, ugly cry with the big gaps, like, I remember doing it and starting to laugh and feeling better about everything. And I've never forgotten that. And I started incorporating that in my daily ritual. And it is really a daily ritual. And it's something that I think more people need to do. Because here's the thing, when you smile, and I don't have any information to back any of this up. This is just me, okay? When you can smile at yourself, a genuine smile, it does play like a reset. It does change your energy. It does make things feel like, okay, different, And what's even better about it is that then I find myself really able to smile at strangers and to people in general. And I have to tell you, it freaks out people a little bit. I mean, I'm just being like, hi, good morning, but I do it. And I do it not just to, give people a little reminder or just to say hi. I mean, some people will just say hi back. And I'm always shooketh by the young people who are like, hi, good morning. They get so excited, But people love when you smile at them too, when it's a genuine hello or a genuine hi. And I find it so much easier. I think all of these little things go back to this trajectory of always trying to be in a place of joy. And that's one of them. That's one of my little secrets. So people should practice it. It's really a great thing. And by the way, back then I had braces and I had a really ugly smile and I had teeth all in front of each other and whatever. And when she said that I had a beautiful smile, look at my smile, like she kept doing that. It just was something that lit up in me and it was just brilliant. Probably one of the most brilliant life lessons as a kid that I learned from a stranger because I don't know who she is to this day. I don't remember. I feel bad.
What's a piece of advice that you once ignored and now you kind of wish you hadn't?
Good question. The first thing that comes to mind is be not afraid. And I was always told that. I was always, I'm not going to lie. I really had some great people in my life who just went out of their way to make sure I was okay. And be not afraid is something that was constantly kind of in my childhood and in my upbringing. But I don't think I understood what it meant for the longest time. I ignored it because I was like, I'm not afraid. Of course I'm not afraid, duh. I was like, just like any teenager would say or whatever. But it wasn't until I was working for one of my clients who has since passed away. She was an older lady. And this was like crazy money. This was like somebody with ridiculous money who's, all of her children had nannies. And, she was always somebody who was doing philanthropic work. And, she just was someone that you could never imagine, like, cleaning a toilet or something. You know what I mean? It was just kind of that thing. But we got to know each other, and she was so invested and interested in how I grew up. And she knew my story. She knew my entire story. And this was way before I wrote my book, right? We're talking about when I first moved out to California and stuff. So she would ask me all these questions about my mom, about growing up the way I did, about the neighborhood, she was just so interested. And she would always say these things like, you're just such a brilliant human being. After everything you've been through, look at how good you are at this. Or she always used to say I should be a business life coach, which is always so funny because I think those things are kind of against each other. But I know what she meant, because I was able to help her to fix things, to kind of give her advice that she never thought about. And here she was. I mean, it wasn't just that she had a lot of money. She also had businesses, you know what I mean? So she always seemed to marvel at my ability to not just adapt to the situation, because I would meet with lawyers with her. I would meet with, the CPAs. I would meet with people in all of these different arenas that we would find ourselves in. She also knew a lot of big time celebrities who were some of her best friends. And she was always like, you're just always so comfortable and kind. And then she would talk about her own children and the mistakes that she made with her own children. And here's why this is so interesting to me, because it wasn't until that moment, until I was speaking to someone who in my childhood, I would have thought of being someone that would never pay me any mind or would never even consider me an equal. That's when I realized that I was not just equal to her, that she thought I was in some way, shape, or form even better than I thought of myself. She didn't just see me as being equal. She actually treated me like I was even better at certain things than she was, and I think I understood from her the most that all the things I feared about what people thought about me, that I wasn't smart enough, that I wasn't pretty enough, that I wasn't all of these things. She kind of broke that in me a little bit by just acknowledging that this woman of prestige and wealth and who knows everybody in town and, has international clients and all of this stuff. Like, she just made me feel like, oh my God, I am of such value. And I think that's when I started understanding not to be afraid of being who I am. And here's the thing, most people who know me from when I was little and growing up or in grammar school, high school, or whatever, always thought I was this really strong, confident kid who always knew what she was going to do. Like, there's the facade that I think we all walk in, right? The mask. Because I always believed in, behave as if, right? That was kind of my motto as a kid, like just wing it, but that didn't mean it was true. And it wasn't until I moved to California and really met her and understood how valued she thought I was, and I was giving her advice about things that I would have never imagined someone of her quote unquote caliber would ever ask someone like me, and that's when I kind of learned, be not afraid. Be who you are, be who you is, because it is good enough. It is brilliant enough. It's like you are somebody who contributes to the world just by existing. And you may think that other people have more than you do, are smarter than you, are better than you, because maybe they drive a certain car, or maybe they have a certain amount of money, or maybe they look a certain way or whatever. But they're probably looking at you and being like, wow. And you never know what it is that they're interested in. I had no idea why she thought I was so amazing until she explained to me that I had been given a gift. She was kind of trying to say it's a gift because you took what was in front of you and you made it great anyway. And look at you now. And she was always pumping me up that way. Look at who you are now. You moved out here. You've got a name for yourself. People respect you. Everybody wants to hire you. She would always, because it's true, when I was working for her, people were always trying to get me to work for them, like her friends, So, but I I always think about that. Be not afraid. I wish I had met her when I was like 12. And, it's not that other people didn't tell me that, but like when people tell you stuff all the time, it's just something else will click in your brain and it'll make sense. But my confidence that I had up until that time it was real and it was what it was, but it was also part of the facade of not wanting to be hurt or not wanting to be taken advantage of. But after I met her, I understood, like, yeah, be not afraid. I am who I is, and this is it. And my confidence is a very different thing today than it was back then. I mean, I think that's true for anybody, but you know what I mean. What do I want people to get from this? I think if I reveal parts of who I am, I think it at least lets people think about what they think about it. I think a lot of us don't consider the depths of our decisions too much. I wish that we would. I wish that more people would understand why they believe what they believe, where that belief system comes from. Is it something that you should keep believing today? I feel like when I reveal parts of who I am, like the smile thing, I've actually never shared that at all. But I hope one person tomorrow brushes their teeth and does it, and they can start to see how one small act might change and reset their morning or reset their afternoon or whatever it is, because they can do this small little thing. I feel like when I share a piece or a part of who I am or what I believe, it doesn't matter whether somebody else believes it or not. I think what matters is that that person takes it in and then says to themselves, I wonder what I think about it too. I wish for a world where we are much more interested in why we believe what we believe, as opposed to just believing the thing that we were told to believe because our parents said this or somebody said that or whatever it is. But like, why do you believe it? And for me, the essence of everything I do comes back to trying to always be a person who comes from a place of joy and positivity. And I kind of figured that out when I was writing my first book. But I do really believe that my life really is all about the joy. I love that I named my company that, and I love that that's what I'm trying to promote on a regular basis. And if I can help other people find tiny pieces of joy, then I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do here. I don't mean to be so dorky about it, but it's absolutely true. So yeah, that's what that's about. Are we done? Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. We love that everyone comes and checks out the Carmen Talk, Friday Night Live, Culture and Consequence, and the Private Lounge, all under the umbrella of All About the Joy. And I am just so grateful. I hope these little Carmen Talks help a little tiny bit. I know I enjoy doing them. So until next time, thank you. And remember, at the end of the day, it really is all about the joy. Bye, everyone. Thanks for stopping by All About the Joy. Be better and stay beautiful, folks. Have a sweet day.